to the So, good afternoon everyone. Today we shall be talking about genetic engineering on economy, health, and ethics. So, why these certain three topics? First of all, economy. The world runs on money because money makes the world go round, right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, money is an important issue and aspect of the world.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have health. And we all know that health matters to everybody in the world, whether young or old. And lastly, ethics is, a question of ethics is the most controversial issue among scientists and everyday people. So now, for this panel discussion, we shall be talking about genetic engineering's view on these certain topics. So what exactly is genetic engineering? Genetic engineering is the modification of an organism's genetic composition by artificial means, often involving the transfer of specific traits from a certain organism such as plants, humans, and animals into an entirely different species. The idea of modifying an organism genetically sounds exciting. However, pros and cons have not been studied on a long term till date. So today we shall understand the pros and cons of GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. Genetic engineering may work wonders, but it is, after all, a process of manipulating the natural. It is altering something that is not originally created by man. So is playing with nature really safe? So today, we've invited experts to talk about this matter. So first of all, let us introduce Dr. John Fagan. Dr. John Fagan, a professor of molecular biology from Maharishi University. Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Don Huber, an agricultural scientist and microbial ecology expert. Good afternoon. Next up, we have Mr. Andre Carrasco, head of the Molecular Embryology Lab at University of Buenos Aires and chief scientist at the National Council for Science and Technology. Next up, we have Engineer Jay Kiesling, a chemical engineer of the University of California at Berkeley. And lastly, we have Dr. Charles Geller, an assistant professor of the University of Texas Health Science Center. So, good afternoon, everyone. So, how is genetic engineering beneficial or not beneficial to the people's ethics?
Well,
Sir?
it's beneficial as we have researched for the improvement of genetic engineering. The main point is that we can save lives through genetic engineering.
In addition to this, through genetic engineering, we could alter the DNA of people, so we could suppress the negative traits and boost the positive traits.
Well, on the contrary, you can save lives, but also at the same time, you can destroy. You can destroy lives. In a way of the process of genetic engineering, it is never good to experiment on a person or something that is related to our lives.
But what if you are experimenting on a person for a good cause?
Yes.
Isn't that good?
It may. Okay. It may be a good cause, but the process is never acceptable since it involves our lives. You may, yes, you may want to prolong our lives, but then with the way, or the process of doing it is very risky.
Yes, there is a risk. Although the risk can be counted if we do get to succeed with our experiments.
But you're never sure that you'll succeed in your experiments.
But
There's no others. Not 100. It's not 100%. Not 100% that you'll be successful. You'll never know.
And genetic engineering yields extremely unpredictable and uncontrollable results that cannot save people's lives.
So talking about death, let's move on to health. So how does this affect the people's health? Knowing that it's an issue, worldwide issue of aging people, sick people everywhere.
Well, in genetic engineering, it opens us to gene therapy. In gene therapy, we could like alter genes, and through this, we could treat disorders and diseases.
And there's also the creation of new organs or new organs. Since there's an issue of the unavailability of organs for transplants, we can counter this with the creation or through creating new organs with with genetic engineering, wherein we can regenerate tissue organ tissue.
But have you ever considered the side effects that this might lead to? Like, there are different bacteria and virus or chemicals that you need to use for this. And with that, instead of helping the people, you might lead them to some more disorder, like disease, health disorder.
But that is why specialists will conduct genetic engineering, not just any ordinary people. And practice makes perfect, right?
Yes. Through experience, we can counter the side effects.
Yes.
But where will you test these experiments? Like, you have to test it on people, like real people. So how do you counter the side effects that will happen to them?
And wait, in addition to that, what if the experiment that you're doing to save the health of the people, we're talking about the health of the people, you want to improve them, or for some of the sickness that are now very common or very severe.
With that said,
what my point here is that what if those experiments that you're doing would just lead to what's the term? Will lead to into worsening the situation or the sickness of that person.
with that said, like most medicines, we should try it on animals first, like rats or whatever. And we should not base this on a what if. Because also, when we say what if one person dies, but in return, 1,000 lives will be saved.
Or maybe 1,000,000 lives.
Well,
Excuse me, are you going to risk some lives to save 1,000 lives? Like, can you just make it natural? If you're going to save in saving one life, it's shit. I think it would be better if you won't test it, if you will just use the natural way. Like, if people will die, they will just die. It's their time. So what can you do? Like, why would you have to prolong it?
So that is why we're trying to prolong lives.
And there's a saying, taking one for the team. So if some lives are wasted, well, we get to save more, or maybe more than what we've done, or we can save.
well, I think I get your point. But then, wouldn't that be unfair for that one person? You sacrifice his or her life just for saving 1,000.
They're not even related. Like, why would you risk life for them?
That's an excellent point, but let's get back to genetic engineering and its effects on health, not on experiments. Okay, so how can we make people healthy? Are there certain food or new products that genetic engineering has offered?
Well, genetic engineering offers more nutritious foods and more products, which could also lead to boosting the economy.
Yes,
and
but
the immune system of the human body.
Yes, but then it causes mutations that can alter the functions of organisms, which can therefore the food produced will be can cause allergic reactions to other people.
Yes, and genetic engineering crops could produce new allergens in foods, which sensitive persons would not know to avoid.
In addition, the cross-pollination of such plants with other plants increases the risk of contamination.
But that is why we should try it first, so we would know if we are allergic or not.
Yes.
And not all people would be allergic to one
Yes.
thing, right?
And since there's the possibility of genetically modifying food, we will be able to produce new foods, and this will improve the nutritional value of food, of the genetically modified food.
There is some research that tells that in genetic engineering, if you add chemical genes to crops, insects or like the helpful organisms are affected by this. Like they are killed because of the chemicals or genes that are added to the crops. So it's not instead of the helpful organisms are affected by this. So what are you going to do?
But in contrary to that, genetic engineering produces pest-resistant crops.
Yes.
And it also prolongs the life of crops. Like you could store them for months or something.
And they may be able to endure harsh soil and climatic conditions.
But based on my research, most genetically engineered plant foods carry fully functioning antibiotic resistance genes, meaning these genes are very harmful, have very harmful effects.
Wow, that sure sounds like a great loss, and it sure sounds expensive. But is genetic engineering really that expensive and good for the economy?
Well, it's actually good for the economy, for corporations, especially agricultural corporations. Well, since we can genetically modify the genes for crops, we can enable them to be produced or to increase the produce for crops, and that would mean cheaper prices for food, and more produce would mean more money for corporations.
In addition to that, by having more produce, we could fight scarcity or shortage.
Yes. Yes.
But before attaining that, I mean, yes, we'll have more produce, and that would result to more money. But before we reach to that point, we're going to have big expenses in order to attain those goals. So not everybody can afford.
But many investors are willing to invest on genetic engineering because they will have more profit with it.
Yes, and actually it would be worth it. Those expensive costs would be worth it.
Well, not all I don't agree, because not all investors would want to risk their money for something that is not yet assured. Something that is not yet assured, since they're businessmen, so they want to be They want businessmen, they want to they want to, you know, businessmen are always they always want their money to be assured.
Yes, but they may be willing to risk it because they would get a bigger profit in return.
Yes, yes.
Knowing that
do you think that investors will risk their money, knowing that it would take years, a lot of years, to perfect something, something that is like genetic engineering? Like it would take a lot of it will. It would take.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I believe that.
I think her point is that would investors really invest knowing that it will take a long run to get their monies back, and that their money is
Well, yeah. I think that as investors, you should risk it while you
Yes.
can, and if you know that it will all be worth it in the end.
well, you're never sure if it's worth it at the end.
Well, at that point, we shall end our discussion knowing that. Shit. knowing that nobody's ever certain of what's going to happen. Whether businessmen would like to invest or businessmen would like to risk it all, we don't know. So, could we ask a final statement or conclusion from each panel before we wrap it all up?
For us, we'd say go for genetic engineering. We as humans, as we reach this era, we've caused a lot of damage to Mother Nature, and as a return, Mother Nature punishes us with imperfections and those other things. But with genetic engineering, we get to cure them or fight them. We get to make our lives more comfortable.
Thank you.
Or maybe near perfect.
Thank you.
For our conclusion, the biodiversity and environmental integrity of the world's food supply is too important to our survival to be put at risk. So, we say no to genetic engineering.
And by taking a stand against genetic engineering, Mothers for Natural Law have come out as protectors of values that cannot be denied without placing of humanity in jeopardy. These include the health and safety of our children and all generations to come, the welfare of the environment, and our fundamental human rights.
So we'd like to thank you, doctors and experts, for your time, thoughts, and expertise on this subject matter. As we all know, genetic engineering is one of the newest and most advanced in science and technology. With its pros and cons, this panel discussion does not aim to start a debate within the masses or the people, but solely to inform them of what's coming ahead in the near future. Whatever comes ahead, whether genetic engineering is good or bad, whether people say no or go to genetic engineering, we totally respect that. And it's for the people to discern themselves. So once again, we'd like to thank everybody for listening. Good day.
In fairness, 20 minutes care 25.
Oh, yun!
Good. Konting research pa, tapos 30 na yun.
May maliit.
Pwede ba So, good afternoon, everyone. Today, we shall be talking about genetic engineering on the economy, the health, and the ethics. So, why do you suppose we chose the economy, health, and ethics for our topic on genetic engineering? First of all, economy is everything. Money makes the world go round, right? Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is an important aspect of our everyday lives.
Really.
Really, exactly. As for health, health matters to everybody, young and old, of every day. Wait, what did I just say? Shit. Go. And ethics is the most controversial of all. And now we are going to talk about a point of genetic engineering, a view of genetic engineering on these certain topics. So, what?
Engineering.
What tama? Anyways. So today, let us meet our experts on these topics to discuss about the pros and cons of genetic engineering. First of all, let us introduce Dr. John Pagan, who is the professor of molecular biology from Maharishi University. Next up, we have Dr. Don Huber, an agricultural scientist and microbial ecology expert. And next up, we have Mr. Andre Carrasco, head of the molecular embryology lab at the University of Buenos Aires and chief scientist at the National Council for Science and Technology. Good afternoon, sir. Next up, we have Engineer Jay Kiesling, a chemical engineer at the University of California at Berkeley. And lastly, we have Dr. Charles Keller, an assistant professor of the University of Texas Health Science Center. So, basically, genetic engineering is the modification of an organism's genetic composition by artificial means, often involving the transfer of specific traits or genes from one organism, such as plants, humans, or animals, into an entirely different species. The idea of modifying organisms genetically sounds exciting. However, pros and cons have not yet been studied on a long term till date. So today we'll understand the pros and cons of GMOs, or genetically modified organisms. So this may work wonders, but it is, after all, a process of manipulating the natural. Is it altering something that is not originally created by man, or is it playing with nature? Or is playing with nature really safe? So how does genetic engineering affect our economy? Sir.
Genetic engineering may not be affordable to common people because it's expensive and not affordable. But since we through genetic engineering we could fight shortage by increasing the produce, and through this then people would have more income. So
Not all.
well, in general, people would have more income that may help them to pay for genetic engineering.
And more produce would mean cheaper prices for products. And
So,
But then they may also lock investors.
how could we lack investors if companies are into genetic engineering, or they're pro genetic engineering?
Well, not all companies are agrees on having genetic engineering,
well,
and mostly companies only involving those with scientific something.
well, since more produce would mean more money and cheaper for the customers, investors would probably invest in their company, since more produce would mean more money.
That's a great point, but so let's talk about, instead of talking about money matters, let's talk about what the produce would be like. What about the food and the people that would consume these foods?
Through genetic engineering, we could improve and enhance the features and the nutrients inside a product. But there are also natural methods being used in order to create these GMOs. So we cannot be sure that it will be okay.
Before that, we as humans, we've caused a lot to destroy nature, and as nature's revenge, we are more prone to diseases. But since there's genetic engineering, we get to fight those imperfections that we get from nature, since there's now pollution and radiation, etc. And since there's genetic engineering, we can fight those things. Di ba
But then again, even though genetic engineering would, as you said, would
cure the imperfections of
what would
cure the imperfections of the punishment of Mother Nature.
yeah, as what you said, but then there are also health risks in which the people can get. So examples of this are new allergens in the food supply and antibiotic resistance.
These could also create viruses that can cause an epidemic. In contrary to that, genetic engineering allows gene therapy wherein we could alter the DNA of people.
So that both sides have a say on health. What about a say on death? Do you think that genetic engineering is okay for morally?
No.
Yes.
Because with a genetic engineering, yeah, it means that you're playing with God, which is not good. So, but it's not you're playing as God, like you're thinking that you have the power to make people, to make new things in the world. Parang it's that's a parang and it's a bit unrealistic. Parang
Obviously, for ethics, or for the church, this would never be accepted since it is just like creating living creatures out of genetic material, which is never acceptable in reality.
Well, if you won't take it too religiously, we'd be able to, with genetic engineering, we would be able to get to be with to stay with our loved ones longer, or live with them longer, since
if it's their time, they have to go. You don't have to prolong their life.
But wouldn't the church also agree to saving lives? And to
If you're going to prolong life, if it means that you're using, if it's their time, they have to go. Like you don't have to prolong it with medical things that will just cause harm to other people. Like it may cause harm. Like it can. It may have the
But isn't it a good thing that we get to stay with them longer?
Yes, but again, it can be expensive and but when you prolong lives, it doesn't mean that you're going to use like machines or whatever. You could prolong life through the more nutritious products that genetic engineer is going to produce.
Well, our main point is genetic
But then
engineering
again-
can save lives.
But but then again, the way of the genetic engineering itself, the process of itself is very risky.
What?
Certain side effects and these nutritious foods that you offer.
Such as
We haven't researched about that.
That is why we have to try genetic engineering so we would know what would cause us allergies or not. So try once you try, syempre pag nagka-allergy ka, hindi mo na siya ita-try again.
English. Sorry. In my research about genetic engineering, it said that scientific progress in molecular biology has a great potential to increase our understanding of nature and provide new medical tools. It should not be used as justification to turn the environment into a giant genetic experiment by commercial interests. The biodiversity and environmental integrity of the world's food supply is too important to our survival to be put at risk. So, say no to genetic engineering.
thank you.
We should go for genetic engineering because there are many benefits to it. We can fight shortage for food. We can be more healthier. We can save lives. Well, actually, the main point of going for genetic engineering is saving lives.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
That's the conclusion, everybody.
To wrap up, genetic engineering is something advanced in science and technology, wherein this panel is not for the purpose of starting a debate amongst people and the masses, rather to inform people of what's coming ahead and what's coming to the world as science and technology advances. So whether everyone says no or says go to genetic engineering, it is for each and everyone to discern whether it is rightful or not. So thank you everyone for listening. Good afternoon. Yay! Turn it off. Turn it off. This is embarrassing.